Welcome, Divine Hearts, and thank you so much for being here with us. My name is Lois, and I'm an Ascension guide. And this week we have the pleasure of the company of a new guest, who is Melissa Stonard. And Melissa is an energy worker. She is a light keeper. She is a way shower. Indeed, she's many, many things. And she works within the light field of the Akashic records. And she also works with energy and has worked with energy for many, many years in various forms through Reiki and Angelic Reiki. And now a new light energy that she will be speaking more about later in this conversation. So let's warmly welcome Melissa here today. Thank you so much, Melissa, for being here.
Well, thank you, Lois. Thank you for that beautiful introduction and for having me on your show. It's very kind of you.
It's our joy and it's our pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for accepting. So let's take you back on a little journey to your early childhood, first of all, because it has been paramount in the work that you offer today and who you are today.
Yeah.
And take us back to those earlier experiences, if you will, of young Melissa and some of the things that you went through then that have really assisted you in the work that you do today.
Of course. So, yes. So I grew up in a crazy house that was always very frenetic, always lots going on. Quite a lot of shouting, and I was a very sensitive child. I was very quiet. I was very empathetic at that age, and highly, highly sensitive. And I struggled in that environment. It was full on, and I would hide away, and that was much easier for me to be alone. And then, at the age of 4, I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. So that kind of threw everything upside down, although my grandmother was also a type 1 diabetic. So we had an understanding of it within the family. So, that was a big thing to deal with. And it was very, at the time we had no medical equipment. So it was boiling up syringes and it would, things were tricky. And then we had a really serious car accident at the same age. My mum was severely injured. So I had quite a traumatic start to early childhood. Kind of fast forward quite a few years. And as a teenager, I found it very hard. I'd always found it really hard to fit in. I always felt different. I remember my mum saying to me, "Where did you come from?" And I always thought that was a strange question, but she asked me that periodically through the time I was growing up. I went quite crazy as a teenager, still didn't fit into the box, wondered what was wrong. I turned to drugs at that time, and that was my escapism. I wanted to, in a way, I think I wanted to destroy myself because I was always disappointed if the drugs hadn't taken me right to the edge of where I wanted to go. I didn't understand any of that at the time, although my childhood was quite difficult. My mum and dad were still really loving. It was, it was a nice place to be, but I left home at 17. I needed to get out. I thought it would be easier. It was the home environment, but I don't think it was, looking back. I think it was just the fact that I just didn't feel like I fitted in anywhere. So my life continued along that vein, crazy, not good, all sorts of things going on. And I got to 19 and I went for a Reiki healing treatment. And as soon as I laid on the bed and the practitioner put her hands on me, I knew that was what I needed to do. That was what I've been looking for. So at that stage, I asked her who had taught her. I went off to learn Reiki. And my life started to turn around. At the same time, I got a job in banking as well, which is bizarre because I was always told I wasn't very good at maths, but I actually ended up becoming a trader. But I was a healer at the same time. So people used to say to me, "How can you be a trader and you're a healer. How does this all work? You think this is, well, about 25 years ago. So people definitely weren't as open to energy as they are now. So I had a bit of a tough time trying to explain to people about healing, what it was. And also I had a lot of healing myself to do on myself at that time. So I had a beautiful guide. My first guide was a Native American Indian called Mountain Wind. And he was just beautiful. And when I was healing people, he would step in over me and we would heal together. And he supported me so much through the early days. And I just couldn't believe how my life had turned around because of energy. And looking at my careers now, the two careers that I had, I really understand it. I see that one was to install the divine masculine within me in a physical sense. And the healing was bringing through the divine feminine in quite a physical way as well. And now in my work and the things I'm bringing forward, which I'll talk about later in the gene keys, I found that I have gene keys 1 and 2. And on a simplistic level, they are about bringing through the divine feminine and divine masculine. So it's such a beautiful puzzle that you only get to understand. You know, I'm 47 now and it's taken me all that time to understand this stuff and how it unfolds just when it's ready and just when it's needed.
Exactly. And it's beautiful because you do get to see it now, you get to understand it. And sometimes some people never understand why things have occurred,
True.
you know, so it's beautiful.
Yes.
But I am going to take you back again, just so we can touch a bit more and deeper on the epigenics side of your work.
Yes.
This is a word that you mention a lot in in the information that you share, so that you can explain what this means and link it to the emotions that you discovered, because I know you mention that you felt that there was a lot of ancestral rage within your lineage. Mm-hmm. So you can expand on that, because I'm sure that many might find this really enlightening and might find that this is something that they feel and understand too.
Absolutely. Epigenetics is fascinating. It is and actually science are looking at it now. It is an actual, something that's being really looked at quite closely. So it's the trauma that is carried down through the ancestral lineage and it appears in the DNA. So, for example, there might be someone that had, in fact, there was a case cited of a Jewish lady that had relatives that were killed in a Holocaust, but it was never talked about. It was hushed up. It was so incredibly painful that it couldn't be spoken about. And because it wasn't, and it was held in, it transpired that it moved through the generations. And then the lady in question, 3 generations on from the incident, was suffering from feeling as though she was choking all the time, and couldn't explain why she had this, this fear, this phobia. And it came from the time when her ancestors were unfortunately in concentration camps, and the trauma was carried through to the DNA. So that's an example of it. It's really interesting, and it can help with a lot of conditions to get to the bottom of them and really understand why they've come about. But that isn't the only way, of course. There are also past life traumas. There are traumas that come from this lifetime within childhood, and I always look at those 3 angles when I'm healing to bring, to check and see which line it's come down to be able to get to the root of it. So in my particular circumstance, type 1 diabetes, as I've been informed by the doctors, is not genetic. So when I found that out, I was really puzzled, because my grandmother had it, I have it, and my son at 7 years old was also diagnosed with it. So to me, that sounds like something genetic. But when the doctors said it wasn't, I was then diving down a rabbit hole to think, where has this come from? What is this all about? I believe, as many of us do, that disease is often rooted in emotion. and it might not necessarily be your emotion. So I know my grandmother in her life suffered much betrayal, and obviously that creates a lot of internal anger, the injustice, the rage. And then I found out that her mother before her, she had I never met her, it was a long while ago. She had a carbuncle on her back, which is like a huge sort of boil. And I know that boils represent anger as well. And she'd also suffered much injustice and a hard life, as many of the female lineages in our family did, as you know, the male lineage did obviously as well. But then that was really interesting because I could see that the anger had come right down the line and may well have come back even further than that. And me, being an empath, being very sensitive, had picked all of that up. My son is the same, very sensitive. So that doesn't stop unless we start looking at it and unless we start healing our ancestors and unraveling that from our DNA.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And we're going to come a bit later to the work that you do today and how it sort of addresses all these things. I'm now with you when you were 19 and you're beginning your early adulthood, walking into this new life. So you enter the world of finance that you were speaking about a bit earlier. I'm fascinated about that, you know, how you were drawn into that. If you didn't believe that you were very good in maths anyway, how were you drawn into that? Because the universe has an amazing way of, you know, giving us these experiences. And also your earliest awakening experiences, the initial awakening experiences, what you remember about those and how you were able to deal with those.
Okay, so I remember, first of all, just to answer your last questions, I was really little and I used to have hooded figures like monks that would stand by my bed, and they terrified me because I couldn't see their faces. I didn't know what they were, I didn't understand it, and I shut it all down. Now, again, looking back, I know that they were my guides. They were there to help me. My mind, because I was in a place of fear, just automatically went to the bad and freaked out, closed it all down. A bit later on, when I was quite young, I think I was about 10, I think I was grounded actually, because I was always in trouble. I was always locked in the house because I'd done something I shouldn't have been doing. And I sent a friend with some money, please go and get me some tarot cards. And I didn't even know what they were. But she got them for me and she came back and I was like, oh, brilliant. I was grounded and I was, looking at these cards. I had no idea how to read them or do anything. And then my mum came into the room and she freaked out and said, they are really dangerous. You shouldn't be looking at those. They're really bad. And I put them away and I was really like, oh God, I shouldn't be looking at these. They're awful. And it kind of shut it down again. So it's interesting how you close these doors and then they only open again when the time is right. I know I've been saved many a time when I have been absolutely out of it on drugs. When I started taking drugs when I was 13. I was very young. And each time I went right to the edge, I got pulled back and I stopped and I never did that particular drug again. So, I know that wasn't my path. And then at 19, I had the epiphany. I didn't ever touch drugs again. I never have done. My path changed. And going into finance, I don't know how that happened. It just did. And again, one of those things. Everyone used to say to me, oh, what university have you been to? I say, oh, I haven't. They're like, how can you do this? Don't know. So it just happened. I was in the right place. The right people helped me. I did my financial exams. It was obviously supposed to be part of my life.
And I think it's a nice little clue about something that you will be bringing in a bit later as well with your connection with Archimedes, which is going to be fascinating.
Yes, absolutely.
So let's speak about your journey into energy. So maybe how you were introduced, you explained with Reiki and your experience with that, and going to learn how to become a practitioner yourself.
Yes.
And what this felt like to you, because I remember my first experience with Reiki and going to a workshop, just having this really profound feeling, I'm a superhero. I've got energy that comes out of my hands. And it was really such a really exciting feeling, really totally new experience. So speak a little about your experiences with Reiki. Also, what we would be really interested in hearing too is the difference, because you work with Angelic Reiki as well. So how this in frequency terms is different, how you feel it or interpret it. So I'll leave it to you.
So my experience with Reiki was it's just so magical. It just changed everything for me. It just makes you, all those things that I thought when I was younger, it made me realize that it actually all was, energy did exist. The magic was there. And just practicing and treating people in the early days was just so mind-blowing. People would say to me, oh my goodness, when you put your hands here, it felt so amazing. And I said, I wasn't touching you then. Just things like that were just mind-blowing and beautiful, and how everybody had such a different experience from it. And then how, because that energy was flowing through you, that it was healing you at the same time. It was just the most beautiful thing ever. And first of all, I learned, the traditional Reiki, and I worked my way up, and, I became a master, and I was showing people how to use that as well. And I think it has such a connection to the earth. It's so beautiful, and it really emphasizes that for me, and working with Mother Earth and coming up through the earth. And then when I learned to do the Angelic Reiki, that was just so different. And the energy, it's like you can feel it. It feels so beautiful. So because it's from above, it's angelic, it's coming down and coming through. And I think that's the difference. And I never, set out to do ordinary Reiki or Angelic Reiki on anyone. It's just what comes through for what they need. So absolutely life-changing. Changed my path in life, rescued me from wherever else I may have ended up. It was just beautiful.
Mm-hmm. And then you entered into the realms of the Akashic records. This began to open up for you.
Yes.
How did this open up?
So I was working with a lady who worked with the Akashic records, and I had a few sessions with her, and then it just started to download for me. So I was able to then show people how to enter into their Akashic records, and help them and empower them in that way, because I never want someone coming back to me over and over again. I'm obviously there to support people, but it's kind of up to the most powerful healing you can do is for yourself, isn't it?
Yes.
And when you have that, sometimes the healing just points you on the right path and awakens your awareness, so you can start to see these things within yourself, and what might need to be changed, because that old saying, as within, so without, is so true. Everything is a mirror of us. Actually, our whole universe and world around us is a mirror of how we feel about ourselves. So when you start to change that, your world changes, and all the people around you change as well, because they're just reflecting back to you all of that stuff. And I just love that. It's just beautiful.
It's so powerful, and it's so transformational.
Yes.
And your journey is showing you and showing us, as well as we listen to this, how we unfold as our energy becomes a finer frequency when we do the inner work and we follow those clues by our universe to go in this direction or to discover more about this.
Yeah.
And so, but it's very prominent in your work and on your journey, because since then there's been an acceleration of unfoldments for you in many ways and on many levels, especially when it comes to energy work, especially. So just begin to share with us a little bit about those unfoldments with energy, this etheric energy that you've been working with, and all that's brought through for you.
Yeah, sure. So in 2019, I started to download new frequencies. So my origin source is Palladian. I believe we come from many galaxies, but we have an origin one, so we have a focal point. So that's where all of my downloads come from. So they started to download etheric med beds for me. So you may have heard about the physical med beds some are available now. I know that many years ago, actually, NASA were working on physical med beds, and I believe they're ready. I believe they're ready to be used, but maybe certain, maybe they don't want it to come forward so much, because if they were to, pharmaceutical companies wouldn't be making as much money as they did now. So these things will be available, and their technology within them is outstanding. So for the time being, my guide said to me, you can bring this through etherically. I actually don't believe we need a machine to do any of these things. Our vessels and our souls and spirit is so powerful. We can bring through anything we need. So the etheric med bed will bring through me the frequencies that a client needs to heal. So you lay on a couch, or you can sit. It can be done distantly, but these beautiful frequencies come through, and they again start to unravel the DNA, where the DNA has been wound in not the correct way. It starts to unwind it so that it can become as it should be. It can become whole. So these frequencies help to heal from physical, emotional, mental issues, as with other healing, but the frequencies are higher. So I've seen some fantastic results from this, and I was offering this as a within my ERB sessions, which I'll go on to speak about in a minute. But they said to me recently, you need to offer these med beds as a standalone, because people need these now. They need these to recalibrate their body. They need these for physical ailments that are sitting in the system. So that's what the med beds are for.
You're speaking about, it's a light body technology. It's you're being able to hold that frequency, and it's an opportunity for others to feel it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's immense, and this is why these times we are living in such an exciting time.
Very, yeah.
Because for me, it just feels like there's going to be a greater ease now of light being able to penetrate through, because it is that trajectory back to that light frequency again.
Absolutely.
And so incredible light beings like yourself, who are in tune and able to share this frequency with others, is such a blessing. It's just beautiful.
Yeah, it's very beautiful. And really, in the last 3 years, so much has come through. So the next part of the downloads that I received was when I went to, I was in Glastonbury in Avalon in the UK. And I was shown a vision, and it was a vision. I was part of the whole, so part of source before it broke away, before it became, came into a physical vessel. And it really made me very, very emotional, because I could feel the original emotion that was there behind it. And the vision showed me me breaking away and shattering my heart chakra. The heart chakra was not wasted, because I was shown that it went to many different galaxies and universes, and those beings upon those planets were able to experience that real unconditional love. But it also told me of my mission this lifetime, which was to, as an experiment, to see if the heart chakra could be rebuilt at this moment in humanity, right now where we are. Can we rebuild it? And it felt enormous. And I've been, since then, I've been through lots more awakenings, and I feel that my heart chakra is now fully aligned. I feel like it's fully expanded, and I'm here to show and remind others how to do that. Because again, when we have heart-based intention, our DNA will unwind and it will rewind in the correct way. So the heart is the key to everything. The heart has been through all of the incarnations with us, so it holds so much knowledge, and it always knows what's best for us. So I've just started my first wave of my heart alignment workshop, which is just really beautiful. And I'll be starting a new wave in August. But it's transmissions and meditations and support to help us to remember to bring the heart up to connect with the mind. So we are, the way we are conditioned, our mind comes in first and then we consult the heart. But the right way is to do it this way. So heart and then mind. And the mind can step back and it can step down, and it doesn't have to be in that place of fear. And you're led by the heart. And, you know, if we could get all of humanity to be this way, we would have zero problems on our planet. So that is part of my mission, and I am sure there are many other way showers and guides that this is also part of their soul mission. But that was something very beautiful that I'm working on right now.
Thank you so much, and that is really, really beautiful. And yes, the power of the heart is immense. Speak to us, because there have been deeper awakenings again, and you have a connection, a very special connection with Archimedes that we mentioned earlier. So share a little bit about this and how this energy comes into this work of yours, and also the etheric regeneration, this bioresonance that is really key to the work that you do as well.
Mm-hmm. So the etheric regeneration and bioresonance, which I call ERB because it's such a mouthful, came through before the transmission with Archimedes. So I'll just talk about that first.
Okay.
They basically downloaded to me that you can, again, bring through any frequency that you need. And just as an aside, I've been looking at bringing through consciousness. So a lot of people at the moment are doing, going on ayahuasca retreats, using lots of plant medicine. This is actually going off on a tangent, but it is related. And I was speaking to someone yesterday about it. We can bring through the consciousness of that. So you have to be so careful with these retreats, because unless they're led by someone very heart-based and who really knows what they're doing, they can actually be very damaging. But it's much easier to bring through, you can bring through the consciousness of anything. So any plant, any flower, anything that you need, we can bring the frequency of that through. So that is the basis of where ERB came from. And they told me that I would be able to download the bioresonance patterns. So you may have heard of bioresonance machines. This stuff is obviously developing very quickly. Once this therapy downloaded to me, I decided that I should try a real bioresonance machine, because I'd never been on one, just to compare what I was bringing through to the machine. And they were very similar, but it was the ERB was different, and it felt purer for me because it's not coming through a machine, because it's just a direct connection to source. And also the intention that you have behind it is very powerful. So ERB is purer than a bioresonance machine. It brings through those frequencies, again, to undo anything within the body. And I use this regularly, and I use this on many of my clients, and I teach my clients how to do it as well. And then they can obviously do it themselves, because with healing, we know that it's in so many layers. It's never enough to do it once. Although, as we've moved into this Aquarian age, I have to say the healings are happening super, super fast. Everything's sped up. So, you know, who knows? Maybe 1 or 2 treatments could resolve something. For me, with my diabetes, I have never seen any modality be able to keep my blood sugar levels as stable as they've been. And as I was doing that on me, that was also happening to my son. So that's almost like the surrogate healing that we see, even though he wasn't, you know, personally receiving the healing. So that's beautiful in itself. And I teach this in workshops. If you look at a bioresonance machine, a medical grade one costs £25,000. They're really big and bulky, so quite difficult to move around. But Lois and I were talking earlier about a Healy, and I haven't looked at Healys, but I've also heard wonderful things about them. And I guess that is on a similar level to the stuff that I'm bringing through. I also think that us humans often need a device, something that's going to satisfy the mind. So you've got a something. So I think that's why it's harder for people to get their heads around energy quite often when they can't see anything. Obviously some people can see energy, but majority of people can't see it. They can feel it, but we're such a visual, aren't we? Such a visual, physical being at times. We need to perhaps use that technology. So that's the basis of the ERB, which is, again, beautiful. I've seen amazing things happen with that. Just from the point of view of my diabetes, it's brilliant, because anxiety, stress and worry all elevate the blood sugar level. So, you know, it should be something that is available to many people, and I believe helps with many, many conditions. That's ERB.
Wow.
I hope it's not too baffling. There's so many.
No, it's fascinating. It's fascinating. And one of the things before we move to Archimedes there, especially with you, there's this, you really get to experience this epigenics that you've been speaking about, but this ancestry, all these different kinds of programs and belief or systems, emotions, whatever that we carry forward with us, but also the power of us being able to transform it or transmute it from within us, and then the power that what we are leaving as our footprints for the next generation and the following generation. It's so powerful.
Yeah.
And it's just showing us how powerful we can be when we really enter into the realm of doing the inner work, this raising the frequency and the inheritance that we leave behind, this energetic inheritance, which is just beautiful. It's really profound. So it really is transformational what we are.
And I'm sure, as you've noticed, because your frequency is super high as well, you just infect everyone. Infect's not a very nice word, but you know, everyone around you just starts to vibe from that frequency as well. So it's not even all the time about even doing anything, but you know, we can raise each other's frequency as well. You know what it's like if someone's in a bad mood, you know, it's hard to not let your level drop. But when you're around people that are super, super high, it's contagious. That's a better word, and infectious.
And I can relate to transmuting things myself and seeing my children having it sort of not so much of the effects that I'm having, sort of thing, not as intense, but still seeing it in them and understanding, making that connection. It's so powerful. It's huge.
You think about aura, and when your energy is really, really clean, your aura is absolutely enormous. So you're really having a great effect on many, many people. Likewise, you have to be careful then that, those negative emotions don't come in and cloud up your aura. But that's why it's so important for to look after your energy and keep it clean. It's like etheric hygiene, isn't it? It's almost like you wouldn't just go to the gym once and suddenly you're fit. Likewise, you don't clean yourself once and say, I'm done. It has to be an ongoing. You have to look after yourself energetically.
Yes. So share with us the magic of your connection with Archimedes.
This is very exciting. This is the most recent download, and this happened in March of this year. And I had a vision of, it was a golden griffin, and he took me by the hand and he told me his name was Archimedes. I've heard of Archimedes. Who's Archimedes? Anyway, I saw myself in, I can't remember the name of it now. I'm going to pronounce this wrong. Vescius piscus, which is two spheres interlocking, but I was spinning within them and I was in white light. So it was all quite mathematical, the things I was being shown. When I'd finished this download, I went and looked at Archimedes, and I saw that he worked with the Vescius piscus in his work in the 3rd century. Like, okay, this is interesting. What's going to come through here? And then this new offering started to come through. So it is quite mathematical in nature because, again, it's to do with the DNA and it's to do with music, which is all. But in fact, we're made of codes, aren't we? Everything within us, a frequency and codes. So this offering is working with looking first of all at human design, which I think is very fascinating. We're all a particular design, which means we have particular elements within us. I then look at the gene keys, which are just fascinating because there's 64 gene keys. They're based on the I Ching, so they're very ancient Chinese hexagrams. And within those 64 gene keys, dependent on our date of birth and where we were born, we are a particular combination of 11 of these gene keys. So these gene keys are like a map to your soul's path. They are really, really fascinating. So part of this therapy, and this isn't my work, the gene keys, but it's something that I bring into my work. So I work with people to show them their gene keys. I then, from their gene keys, design an ERB healing, which is recorded for them. So you've got a bespoke, very unique healing based on your own gene keys. So within the gene keys, there are 3 elements. There's the shadow, there's the gift, and there's the acidic level. So many of us dip in and out of the shadow level of our gene key, but where we really want to be is within the gift, and the ultimate journey end is in the acidic level, which is the top level of the gene key. So it helps you to transmute lots of the shadow that you experience, and it's fascinating. Over the last few weeks, we've been through huge transformations with the eclipses and the full moons, and it's been never ending. And I found myself at times dipping into the shadow within one of my gene keys. And it was only when I was studying it last night that I just found it so interesting, because the shadow of one of my gene keys is depression. And when you move through to the gift, it's freshness. And that's almost like the destruction and the creation. So I could then relate it to my earlier childhood, that I would dip, not just because of all what has gone on in the family. Everything is so complex, isn't it?
Yes.
It was actually that I'm genetically wired when I'm in my shadow state to dip into depression. And actually those really dark moments can be very illuminating, as long as you're able to let them pass through, as long as you don't let your mind grab onto it, which obviously I did in the early days. Now I understand that I just need to transcend that and move back to the light. But I found over these few weeks that I was temporarily dipping into those dark places again. It just helps you to understand so much about your journey. So it's beautifully illuminating. And then having a healing designed around the gene keys to be so specific to the things that have continually perhaps plagued you throughout your life it's completely life-changing. And they then said to me, so I work with music as well, I work with sound, so I've always sung, and they said to me, you need to download soul songs for everyone. And I was like, oh, what? Okay, so and the soul songs are, I've just finished writing mine, and it comes from your gene keys, and I bring through different melodies related to your specific gene keys, so using the 11, and then I record them for you as part of the session, and you have those, and they help your DNA to unlock, they help your heart to unlock. They are your soul song, your soul map, part of the answer to where you need to go. So that is my new offering, which I am super excited about.
Oh, I love that, and it sounds beautiful. I just love this journey of discovery, and how you're accessing through raising your frequency continually. You're just accessing new aspects and parts of yourself.
Yes.
That we never knew really existed until we reach that frequency, and then things open up, and it's just like this treasure box of things, this, the Akashic coming in, and then these different frequencies, because you're able to reach them now and bring them through to share, which is just beautiful. And with your journey as well, thank you for sharing with especially sort of personal things about your journey with drugs as a young adolescent and things, because it's so important to share these things, because I've got a similar sort of background. I dabbled in lots of things, but alcohol was a big thing for me, especially in Wales, and it was acceptable. And I think I was around 13 when I started drinking, and heavy drinking was really normalized. And today, having traveled a lot and having children myself, I see how it's not normal at all. As in, my children have never been, it's never been normalized. It's not something that other children the same age as them do. So it's like, we don't realize sometimes until we're taken out of something, these deep patterns that are held, So thank you for sharing those things, because it's not something to feel sort of, these things are really important, and they take us, they were ways of taking you into other dimensions, exploring things.
And I've never been brave enough to talk about any of that. And you're right, it's important, and it's not to be ashamed of. It's just, it was just part of the journey at that time.
Exactly. And you're fascinating. There's so many things. You've shared so many beautiful things here today. I know one thing that I would love to ask you is, you have spoken previously about fear, and how potent this is for many of us, we might not even realize, and how it's affecting many of us in the way that we live life itself as well. So you share what has been unfolding for you around this and what you understand it to be.
I think what's really interesting, and what so many of us don't realize, is that we have a deep, deep fear of death. I hear people saying all the time, well, I'm not scared of dying. I think we are, and I think it's wired into us. I think we often can't accept that we will just go back to consciousness. It's actually a very scary thought. And I was studying something recently about our genes and our DNA, and we don't just carry our own fear of death. We carry all of our ancestors' fear of death as well. So I found it quite a powerful practice I try and release that actually every day, because it's a paradox. When we have a fear of death, we then have a fear of life as well. So we're not living to our full potential. You know, everything has duality, doesn't it? Everything is yin and yang. So those two are, obviously complete opposites. And it has such a profound effect on us. And this is all unconscious. We don't really know that this is happening. So, yeah, that's just one example of how a deep, deep fear that's really inherent, really deeply hidden away, has a huge effect on all of us, I think.
It's huge, because it was a huge aha for me when you spoke about death. And it not being not only sort of our fear of death, but the whole gamut that we're carrying.
Yeah.
You know, and that really did hit home for me. And I can see I have some friends who have really deep, deep fears that come into prominence at what seem like strange times, but it's just an outlet to get it out, because it needs to be released. But then when you're realizing the baggage we carry, the fear of death of a whole, I mean, not just for yourself, then of course it makes, absolute sense.
You think, because we are one, we are a collective, many of us that are sensitive won't just be feeling our own stuff as well as our ancestors' stuff. We'll also be feeling humanity's fear. So I often will just sort of walk outside and I'll think, oh, what's that really angry feeling that I can feel in me? It's not mine, but it is mine because we're all one, but it's humanity's. It's on a collective scale and it's enormous. So actually, as we heal, we are healing humanity. We're healing everyone. And that is a beautiful thing, but there is a lot of fear, and fear is the crux of all of our problems. They're all deep, deep rooted fears.
Thank you so much, Melissa. I find you and your frequency so beautiful, and the way that you're here to empower those that you work with as well, and that's so, so important. So if there's anything that you wish to share, any message that you wish to share, you're most welcome to.
Just anyone, please feel free to get in touch, even if you just want an exploratory call. I totally understand that, because there are so many elements. If you wanted any advice on anything, any way that you felt might be right for you, I would say as well, if it feels right in your heart and you feel it in your body, then feel free to reach out. The new offerings that I've been talking about are coming soon on my new website, but they are available. So if you wanted to reach out now and find out more, please do. You can email me. My email is melissa@lovelighealing.info. So you're very welcome to do that.
I will include all your details as well on your website and everything below this conversation. So people can find you easily. But Melissa, it's been such a joy. Thank you so, so much for the beautiful work that you share and the frequency that you hold and you share. It is greatly appreciated, and you are deeply loved. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Lois, as well. So thank you so much for inviting me on. And likewise, you are just the most beautiful light frequency as well. It's been an absolute pleasure.